And it's a brand new day. Thank you indeed for staying with us here on Channels TV. This is the morning brief from the bustling streets of Lagos to every great corner of our nation. Thank you so much. I am Kelly Egiga. The weekend is here, guys.
Yes, TGIF. And from our global headquarters here in Lagos, we welcome you to your perfect morning starter. And we're bright up and early as always. I am Bukola Koka. Blessed.
I'm Jeffrey Uzoma.
Among men.
I'm a man, please. Original. Follow come.
By the way, you're a gentleman of the press.
For clarity.
Just remember, you're a gentleman of the press.
Yes, I'm a gentleman of the press.
Guys, what are you tracking?
But I'm sure a time is coming when female advocates and all of that, feminists would clamor for gentlemen and gentlewomen.
Oh, the advocacy is already on, however subtle it is. And we just may be having a great gentlewoman of the press on the show today, speaking of...
What difference does it make, by the way? I'm just wondering now, for the purpose of education. So, guys, what are you tracking?
Well, I mean, let's begin with the meeting with the governors, Nigeria Governors Forum yesterday, meeting with the president. And the president really now to statements after that particular meeting. Let me see if I can pull that very quickly and just read through a few of the words of Mr. President, because it was captured in a press statement, released to the media yesterday. So after meeting with the governors, the president says he's pleased to have discussed with the Nigeria Governors Forum. He says the governors have, on their own initiative, resolved to take immediate measures to bring down the cost of transportation in their states, with a strong focus on leveraging the cost benefits of CNG and electric vehicles. And the president says through the Presidential CNG Initiative, over 120,000 vehicles have been converted nationwide. He goes ahead to give us other data around 100,000 additional conversion kits in the works, he says, and all of that. But it looks like this sounds like panic to me. This sounds like desperation to me, because it was on May 29, 3 years ago, that phrase, subsidy is gone, put millions of Nigerians into the environment where we find ourselves today. So 3 years after, it looked like it wasn't planned. It looked like there was no preparations for the aftermath of that statement. Only 5 months to the elections is when the governors and the president is saying, oh, we are set to roll out more buses to help Nigerians with the cost of transportation. And this is not going to be effective until October 1. So that's even further, maybe 4 or 3 months to the elections in 2027. So it looks like panic mood to me. It looks like desperation. Yes, I hear that sometimes they say, oh, desperate measures, desperate times calls for desperate measures. But, I mean, I'm not sure Nigerians deserve to go through all of this. This should have been in the pipeline before that statement was made, which plundered millions of Nigerians into even poverty, some would say. Already we're battling. Remember how Buhari had promised to uplift, was it 10 million Nigerians out of poverty now, or 100 million? Okay, 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. That was almost how many years ago now? But that decision, that action again, according to reports, further even plundered many and millions of more Nigerians into multi-dimensional poverty. So I think the government perhaps should have had all of this before. So I think there's some sort of desperation. And some would say, you know what, let's even commend Atiku for putting some sort of pressure and fire. Yes, because in very recent times, all of a sudden, I mean, I think we're seeing a different Atiku Abubakar in these elections ahead of the polls. Because it looks like on a daily basis, he's giving them back-to-back pressure. And I'm wondering what is happening to the presidential candidates of the NDC, because it doesn't seem to be doing much. Maybe he has perhaps another approach or strategy, but I think in the last few weeks, Atiku Abubakar has been the person putting a lot of pressure on this particular administration and perhaps even the governors, and they're seeing him in a different light. Guys.
Well, first of all, let's talk about what is exciting. The president ordered the release of 500 more CNG stations, refueling stations nationwide. And the presidency is having us understand that this is in addition to the 500 initially ordered last year. And about a month ago or so, we recall also that the president ordered the release of 100,000 CNG conversion kits. Now, if those, I wonder if work has begun on the 500 CNG refueling stations initially ordered at the beginning of the year. If that has begun, it would add up to what we already have for about 90 refueling stations covering 23 states of the Federation. Now, that is inadequate considering the number of vehicles that we have on Nigerian roads. Let's assume that what we have is half of our population, 100 million vehicles, or if you like, 125 million vehicles. That is still inadequate, to power the consumption, CNG consumption needs of the country. There's still that challenge of conversion hesitancy. Hence, out of perhaps hundreds of millions of vehicles available nationwide, the CNG initiative has only been able to achieve conversion for about 120,000 vehicles. Now, the president is assuaging or appealing to drivers to ensure that the benefits of a subsidy gets to the masses through lower costs of transportation. And this is where I also want to talk about how Nigerians may also be the problem of Nigerians. Now, some commercial vehicles have benefited from the CNG conversion program through some state governments, particularly in Lagos. And many times we see them queuing up for refueling, at major stations. But that has not necessarily brought down the cost of transportation. And some of them still have, the petrol component. So sometimes when perhaps CNG is not available, then they resort to powering their vehicles through the petrol component that is still left. But Nigerian commuters do not know the difference. And so when they're benefiting from CNG, when they're powering their commercial vehicles from CNG, Nigerians still pay a whopping sum for transporting from very, very short distances. And that is part of the problem. That is part of Nigerians' inhumanity to Nigerians. So there's not so many things that you can blame on government. Nigerians must also take responsibility, for how they treat their fellow citizens. And that's part of the problem. But is this also reactionary in response to the challenge thrown by the presidential candidate of the ADC? It looks very much like it. And it appears as if, as I had said earlier, that petrol subsidy will be the campaign bait for Nigerians, to pick up on and decide whether or not who to go with in 2027. And we've had the presidential candidate of the Accord Party saying his own starting price for petrol for Nigerians would be 600 plus naira per liter. Is it a possibility? Perhaps that's why many Nigerians are asking the candidates to lay out their plans about how they hope to achieve it, to actualize it. But as the administration, the Tinubu administration, done well in its implementation of its CNG program, a product of its subsidy removal, it perhaps doesn't look like it, because in about 3 years so far, 120,000 vehicles converted to CNG, that is certainly inadequate. As a matter of fact, guys, I recall in 2023, the president directed the purchase of about 3,000 CNG vehicles. Did those vehicles arrive? How evenly we saw some CNG deployment in some key states of the Federation. How evenly distributed were those vehicles? Are they still functional? And have they helped in any way to bring down the cost of transportation in the states where they were deployed to? Did we even see the rollout of 3,000 by the presidential CNG initiative? Those are the questions that we should be asking about the implementation of that program under the government of President Tinubu.
This is clearly a knee-jerk response and a political response. Is it a good idea? Yes. Will it happen? No. Just let me tell you why I doubt, and I would like to be proven wrong. The 2023, the president came out and made that promise, having seen, at that time the price of petrol was higher than this. 3,000 CNG buses or vehicles or buses in that sense. It's buses. And there was about 100 billion naira earmarked. As we speak, how many are available? If you do a quick search, it's an abysmal number compared to what the president has promised. Now, the president has come again to say 500 buses. Bukola, you're talking about the conversions. He talked about, I did a quick search, FRSC and all of that. How many vehicles are in Nigeria? Let's put it around 10 million. And if you've done about let's just approximate to 150,000 vehicles converted, that's less than 2%. Mm-hmm. That's why I said the policy of government, when it comes to the social element and some of these alternatives, they are either ineffective. At least we know NEL Fund is effective. NEL Fund is one of the things we're very proud of, although some people say it should have been free. But for the purpose of sustainability, nobody can argue with NEL Fund because we can see the monies, people are testifying. So on that one, we'll score them like 100% as far as NEL Fund. They can just do a lot more better. So that's out of the way. So if you look at the numbers that have been given so far, it is clear to me that there is no commitment to this alternative energy argument. If Bukola and Kelly, if it is the idea of government in terms of the social element, it's either it's inefficient, ineffective, where it's efficient and effective is inadequate. Nigeria, we're lots. The population is over 200 million. And if you have half of that in poverty or multidimensional poverty, all these stopgaps will not work. You have to think differently. Nigeria is a country that has what we call working poor, 5% unemployment rate, as against almost 70% people in poverty, about 63, depending on which data you're looking at. So we have a lot of working poor people. So that's why the government has to sit down with this policy and say, and be very sincere to Nigerians, to know what to do. Because that's why no matter what you do, there's something we call it more like the macro conversion to the micro, which has not happened, which people usually say is trickle-down effect. Because if you say we should convert, there's conversion hesitancy. There are inadequate stations. The vehicles are a lot. So we can go on and on. So based on the initial promise of 3,000...
cost of conversion as well.
Yes. Based on the initial 3,000 buses that were promised, and the 100 billion that was earmarked, 2023, and this is 2026, 5 months to election. Yeah. I don't even want to come to my friends, the governors. I'm trying my best to avoid the governors today, because does the president have to talk to you? For those of them, to be fair, some have actually been able, I've seen state, I've seen Abia, I think I've seen Akwa Ibom, I've seen Enugu, I've seen Lagos. So there are a few states that I can point to that have made some moves in terms of, transportation. But the vast majority, some of these governors must lose their election so that they will learn a lesson. Because, no, it's true. What are you doing? How? Okay, let's say you don't know anything.
I'm sure some people in their states have just said amen to that.
Let's say you don't know what to do. You have no idea about governance. People are suffering from the policy of government. The least, just like you get excited to commission roads, how much will it cost to put buses and subsidize it? These things happen in London and all of these places where housing is expensive, but transportation is cheap. Something has to give.
And they travel to those places.
Yes.
And spend more time there. So.
Housing is expensive, transportation is expensive, PMS is expensive, healthcare is expensive. What exactly are you guys doing?
Cheap?
Food.
Which food?
What essential commodity can we categorize as affordable to the average Nigerian? I mean, at the yardstick of 70,000 naira minimum wage. So what commodity is available to Nigerians as cheap?
If you do the conversion of naira to dollar, 30,000 is more in naira terms. It's more in dollar terms than what the 70. I think Bukola is the one that goes to the market. My wife told me, I was shocked that Titus fish is now more expensive than turkey. I couldn't believe it. Whether it's a kilo or something like that, they measure. So what exactly? So if you can't do...
That's for those of you who can actually afford Titus.
I admit I haven't been eating Titus.
That's why she did not respond. That's why she did not respond.
Because people have had to subscribe to other versions of things right now.
My problem is, we see them do roads and all of these big things, pay for coverage and invite big people to come and speak big English. The basic of the basic, we pay for everything. So, yes, we have a disagreement with the president, but he has also done his bits. To be fair to him, even though we don't agree totally with him, now you have more money. What are you doing with the money? Do you know how embarrassed I felt yesterday that the president had to sit down with governors and not agree with them to provide buses? Just process it for a moment. Yeah. Does he have to do that? I rest my case.
Well, guys, let's take a moment. When we come back, we head to the papers this morning. We're back in just a moment, everyone. Please stay with us here on the Morning Brief. Welcome back to the program, everyone. The national dailies gets our attention this morning, and Mr. Dayo Akintobi joins us live on the program, public affairs analyst and journalist. Thank you as always, TGIF, but we know that you're a TGIM.
Yes, indeed. But I've even got a good one for Friday now.
Okay.
I call it Oxygen Day.
What does that mean?
Please?
No time, more oxygen to the brain.
No, we have the word time.
No, you guys have bigger brains. You guys have bigger brains. I mean, you're eggheads, you know so much that when you pull the tie, it doesn't disturb you. But for those of us who are just managing.
I don't believe that, Mr. Akintobi. Mr. Akintobi, you're forming Yoruba humility for us today.
Thank God it's Oxygen Day. Let's carry on.
It's another one.
Yes.
It's difficult to comprehend, but like Jeff was just saying a moment ago, imagine the president having to meet with executive governors just about providing CNG buses. I think we're 500 more for Nigerians. So because of CNG, that's why they had to call a meeting to perhaps sort of appeal to the governors to make this available to Nigerians. The timing is questionable. It looks like desperation to me. It looks like panic mood to me.
It goes to show just how low our democracy has fallen, and you know, even the people have come to have very low expectation of their leaders. Otherwise, the governors are the lords of the manor in their own ecosystem, and they don't really need to be told what to do in terms of bringing succor to their people. For the president to have to call them and sit down and say, look, let's put our heads together about how we can reduce transport costs for our people. First of all, it's coming a bit too late after 3.5 years with elections around the corner. These are things that should have been thought of and acted upon as soon as that subsidy is gone, statement was made. But nonetheless, I'm happy, because it means at least they're thinking about it. The opposition has lit a fire underneath them. And so this goes, for me, the key instructive element of what has happened is the fact that it shows us the advantage of a strong opposition. You are talking about now Atiku is playing a major role, and every day is coming up with something to put pressure on the government. So now we see the import of a strong opposition and what it can actually do in service of the people. So now that Atiku has found his voice, he's standing up to these people, they're suddenly finding that they have to react. Otherwise, they might pay a price at the polls. So, you know, of course, the ruling party has, I think, 31 state governors under its belt. So they're one large family. It's easy for the president to call them as his proteges and say, guys, come, let's collaborate. Because all of a sudden, we find ourselves scrambling at a very late hour to where the federal government is to act on its own, and each state individually tries to act on its own. It might not have a cumulative effect that is meaningful in the next 4 to 5 months. So he's rallied his troops. And you know, each time I hear them say, the president say, go and talk to the governors, go and talk to the governors. They all have more money. And I just laugh.
Hold your governors to account.
And I say, you say, the governors are your boys. as he showed yesterday by the meeting, by being able to call them all, to be able to push them to do this. But I don't think they needed to be pushed. I think they need to know their responsibilities to their own people, know that they have the wherewithal, they have the money, they have the legal authority, the constitutional backing, and the moral responsibility to take the lead in being creative about how to resolve this issue. Because remember, the issue of the hardship didn't come from the governors. It came from the federal administration. But the impact is felt at the street level, where the governors are the ones who hold sway. So, I don't think the president needed to get to that point where the president had to call them and be telling them what to do. Right. They should have known better.
All right. Let's begin your analysis this morning by taking a look at the New Telegraph. The New Telegraph this morning, it leads with security Borgu attack. Catholic bishops demand action against terrorists and sponsors. Catholic bishops demand action against terrorist sponsors, says FG. States begin rescue operation for abducted Niger worshippers. PFN, that's the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, condemns attack, seeks quick, safe rescue. No contact made by abductors just yet. That's the Commissioner for Information, who was on this platform exclusively yesterday. And 163 freed Kwara abductees reunite with their families. But here we go again in security, taking the center stage for the New Telegraph this morning. The Catholic bishops, they have been very vocal, very critical, and I expect them to continue to stay on that path. Mr. Kintobi.
Yes, I don't know if this was calculated to embarrass the president, because in case we forget, he's actually the Jagaban of Borgu, that very place where this incident happened. And it just seems like it's rather deja vu-ish that would happen at a time like this in a place where he is one of the revered elder statesmen. But having said that, I look at that in conjunction with another report that was just released that talks about how many millions of dollars in ransom have been paid over the last couple of years in terms of this kidnapping scourge. And the fact that Boko Haram has received about 90% of it, which means that they are at the forefront of this terrorism scourge that we are facing in the country. Well, what has recently happened in Niger State is of course, a continuation of what we've been experiencing recently. Again, the president has pulled out all the stops and told all the security agencies to go out and rescue the abductees. But it's starting to sound like a broken song. We hear it over and over and over again. Like you said, the Catholic bishops are not relenting in their continuous push. Remember the recent controversy with the Cardinal Oneyeko in terms of what he had to say when the Catholic bishops visited the president. And they're speaking up again now that we have this situation with Niger State that, look, follow the money. The way to address terrorism properly is to seek the funding sources, because money is the oxygen that drives terrorism. Without having funding for logistics, for weaponry, for things like petrol, things like vehicles, motorcycles, it's not just about arms. But even when they kidnap people, their victims need to be fed while they're in captivity. So it takes quite a lot of money to fund their operations. Somebody is providing that money somewhere. And we now have BVNs, we have NINs, all the banks have this KYC, know your customer requirement. So we should follow the money. When this newspaper article is talking about the sponsors of terrorism, the people that we are capturing, they're just the street level operatives, the people we are arresting, they're just the bagmen that, run the operations for the real heavyweights who are behind the scenes. That is who we should target, and the way to follow them is by following the money.
Let's go to this Nigeria, and this leads with something that doesn't lead most of the time when it comes to the dailies, and that has to do with football. Chaos in football house. President directs comprehensive reforms over perennial dismal performances. NFF boss Gusau orders quit. They hardly quit. But now they have to go. I think elections are in September also, somewhere in the, down the road.
Yes, indeed. And you know, football is a religion in Nigeria. So if we're not doing well in football, heads must roll, especially at a time like this where elections are imminent. And there have been two major disappointments. The Super Eagles, the Flying Eagles, didn't qualify for the World Cup.
Back to back.
And then the ladies, the Falcons too, didn't qualify for next year's World Cup. So heads had to roll because all of a sudden you ask yourself that we are super talented. There's no league in the world, whether it's England's Premier League, whether it's La Liga, Bundesliga, any of the major leagues where Nigerian players are not the headliners, we're the major stars. And if we can thrive that well on the international scene, why is it that here we keep falling apart? It goes to the issue of administration and organization. You know, you can recall all these horror stories of seeing Nigerian athletes or Nigerian players begging when they're already at the event, saying, oh, we haven't received our allowances, our kits didn't arrive, you know, our hotel bills haven't been paid, all kinds of chaos and dysfunction. So it goes down to the issue of administration, it goes down to how things are run. And it shows that they are not just inefficiencies, but perhaps beleaguered by corruption. And, you know, even the previous NFF administration, I think Amaju Pinnick or somebody was one in charge of that, it also was rife with allegations of mismanagement, misappropriation, all kinds of things. So, you know, maybe a complete purge is required. And here now, you know, the leadership has had to resign. As you said, it's not a usual thing in Nigeria to see anybody resigning. But to tell you the truth, we've had one or two key positions occupied by key people that have had to resign recently, whether from political pressure or just the fact that, you know, their positions were no longer sustainable. So we look forward to a complete rejigging of the administration of Nigerian football to where our local talents can thrive. We do have the talent and the ability to not just feature at the World Cup, but to even prevail and win those kind of tournaments based on the raw talent that we have.
Do you mean the female or the male team?
Both. We have the talent in both. Even in athletics, we have the talent. So it's about the administration, you know, things like coaching, nutrition, you know, health and fitness, all the things, the preparations we're supposed to do well ahead. We don't do them. When it's a month or a week to the tournament, we start calling all the players from all different places in the world. Come. People that have not practiced together, they've not played together, they've not bonded. Then at the last minute, we throw them together and expect them to be a cohesive unit. It doesn't work that way in organized sport. So we do need a complete revamp. Let's purge the entire structure and let's build the foundation from ground up again to where we can begin to feature at the world stage.
Interesting. That will form some of our talking points later on the program. So perhaps we should just, you know, reserve the rest of the aces for later on. Let's go to, you know, another subject matter with which we started off the program. Economic reforms. That's the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. The front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Economic reforms. Experts weigh gains, costs, prospects. Economy has stabilized, finance minister says focus now on conversion of stability to prosperity, cautions against reform fatigue, governors reject blame over accountability for fuel subsidy removal proceeds. I'm wondering if this is a half empty or half full situation, and the governor is refusing to take responsibility. What are your thoughts on this?
The governors have more money, they have more money, they have more money. That's the mantra, you know, that's the song we've been hearing is go to your governor, he's got more money, go to your governor. But the governors on the other hand are saying, yeah, we've got more money in Naira terms, but it's buying less. The same way that you were saying earlier that 30,000 Naira minimum wage before could buy more than 70,000 today. The governors are saying the same thing. They're saying, first of all, the value of that money is less. So in actual fact, even though it looks like it's more, it builds less roads, less bridges, you know, less hospitals, less schools than we used to be able to with less money. Then secondly, they're also saying, hey, we've got increased labor costs. We used to pay 30,000, now we're paying 70,000. If you multiply by how many hundreds of thousands of workers, just wages and pensions alone under the new regime is sucking much of that money away. So we don't really have that much extra to do a whole lot. Well, like you said, it's a half full, half empty situation, because the same way that each and every one of us has had to adjust to the new reality of the value of what's in our pocket, and we've had to make do. Here we are at least living. Even if we're not thriving, we are living. We're doing the necessary things with the diminished buying power in our pockets. We're still surviving. And I mean, to the glory of God, we don't look hungry. We're not homeless. The average Nigerian is, in as much as the shoe is pinching, is still at least on a daily basis living till the next day. So the governors should be able to, with the diminished buying power of their allocation, should at least be able to do something that is beneficial to their people. You know, yeah, like Jeff said, there are one or two states that stand head and shoulders above the rest, but by and large, the majority of the states are not doing anything. They're just resting on their laurels saying, oh, the buying power of the money is less. Well, I want to put it to you that if Nigerians can adjust as individuals and continue to live, even if they're not thriving, at least they're living from day to day, from hand to mouth. The governors, even with reduced buying power, should be able to take their states from day to day in which the people are able to breathe. You know, remember that cliche about your knees on my neck, let me breathe, let me breathe. The governors should take their knees off the people's neck and let them breathe on a daily basis. In terms of, we want to move from stability to prosperity, as said by the Minister of Finance yesterday. That sounds very highfalutin and very encouraging and fluffy, and you know, that okay, it goes back, the hint or what is implied in that statement is that, look, when we came in, the economy was in a shambles, the country was going bankrupt, the country was about to fail. And I have always disputed that assertion. First of all, that it's the same party. And so you cannot exempt yourself from what the previous administration did, because the party reigns supreme. So it's the same party that has moved from one to the next. And in addition to that, I also think that 3.5 years is too long to still be talking about prosperity, about moving to prosperity. Statistics is all we've been seeing for 3.5 years. By now, we should have been able to begin to see the gains. It's not 3.5 years later that you should be talking about CNG buses to reduce transport costs. If you reduce transport costs, cost of food in the market will reduce. It shouldn't be with 6 months to an election, because it looks like, you know, this is vote buying in a different roundabout kind of way. I mean, all of a sudden now we are seeing $1 billion cash transfer program with a few months to go to the election. Is that vote buying in a roundabout kind of way? Why don't we see substantive gains to these reforms, to where we're moving from reforms to prosperity much faster?
Yeah. Well, desperate times, they say, demand desperate measures. Dayo Akintobi, public affairs analyst and journalist, thank you as always for your analysis on the program.
My pleasure always.
Well, this is the morning brief. Stop gas flaring and convert the resources into economic benefits for Nigerians. That was the message of Mr. President to the management of the liquefied natural gas. We'll talk about all of this after this moment. Please stay with us.
With some of the success recorded in the partnership between the federal government and the NLNG, conversations are now on as to what to do with flaring of gases. The NLNG came into being in the 90s by an act, and they had a lot of things going for them. But now the president met with the management to say, how about we make economic use of this flaring? We need you to think in that direction. Well, we'll bring in somebody who understands how that system works. Kelvin Emmanuel is the CEO, Energy Consulting Practices, and energy policy expert, joining us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Emmanuel, thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a privilege to be here.
So let's talk about what the implication of the president's directive means. I know there's an agency of government called the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, which primarily I understand has to do counterpart funding, looking for government equity in private sector to be able to facilitate the utilization of our vast resources that we have. And LNG has that public-private partnership model in terms of their cooperation where the federal government also sits on the board, but of course the private people have majority stake. What exactly is going on now that you think that the president is making this request from them, and how will this work out?
Geoff, thank you so much, and good morning to the viewers all over the world. Well, you know, the NLNG was established by an act of parliament in 1989. His first shipment was in October of 1999. I think that was after Olusegun Obasanjo had taken over power, you know, as the civilian president, you know, after a long military rule. And it built a number of trains, and then, you know, over the space of 3 to 5 years, added and made it 6 trains. And it's currently building a 7th train. And the gas that goes to NLNG, which is an incorporated joint venture company model between NNPC that owns 49%, Shell, that used to be SPDC, now SNEPCO in Nigeria, then it has Shell Gas, then you have Eni, and then you have Total. So mostly like an incorporated joint venture company model, which means that the joint venture between the operators and the government is a legally incorporated entity, different from an unincorporated joint venture. It's between Nigeria and European partners, because back in the 90s and in the early 2000s, the Americans were not so keen about LNG before, you know, they had the shale revolution and ExxonMobil and Chevron started looking that way. So, you know, this means that, for example, LNG separates natural gas into methane. Methane is about 80% the composition of natural gas. Propane, butane. Propane and butane are your LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. Then you have the C family of gases, pentane and the likes of them. It supplies some of that gas to the Nigerian market, the LPG. Some of the LNG is nominated and is sold within Nigeria. And one company, for example, has done a good job at transporting LNG to the north, where you don't have gas as much as you have in the south, and then regasify it into natural gas for use by gas-based industries, mostly in Kano and the environs. You know, but the challenge has always been that Nigeria's share of the LNG market has dropped significantly to about 5%. And Nigeria is no longer as competitive as it used to be, because it has issues around not enough feedstock supplies. I would say currently NLNG is at the capacity utilization of anywhere between 67 and 70%. The 30 to 33% non-capacity utilization, I would attribute about 23% of it to lack of actual gas feedstock. And then I will attribute another 7% to plant integrity issues, you know. And then, you know, you have to ask yourself, why is it that there is a lack of gas feedstock? And why is it that, you know, if the likes of Qatar, Australia, the US is increasing its build for LNG trains and, you know, producing more LNG and dominating the LNG market globally? And if after Russia's LNG and oil was sanctioned when they invaded Ukraine, there was a shortage of LNG prices went up. The Yamal pipeline for Nord Stream 1 that goes from Russia, Poland to Germany, you know, went out of service because it was sanctioned. Nord Stream 2 was damaged, destroyed, vandalized. There was a shortage of LNG in the market, and, you know, the world was looking forward to Nigeria to step up to the plate. It couldn't step up to the plate. And you've not seen new investments in actually building infrastructure, LNG infrastructure, because the operators and investors cannot find line of sight, a clear line of sight to availability of gas feedstock that will, you know, incentivize them to invest in infrastructure to build new LNG trains. You know, you have gas under the unregistered joint venture model, and you have gas under the production sharing contract model. You know, the Associated Gas Reinjection Act of 2004, you know, sections of it were actually repealed and was subsumed into the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021. And under that PSC framework of 2021, Nigeria PSC framework, most of the gas offshore still goes under the authority on concessionairship of NNPC that owns Nigeria's oil and gas assets, you know. And the challenge is that you don't have one, like a legal and commercial framework for gas that you get when you drill standalone gas wells, right? Because 52% of the gas in Nigeria, the proven and probable reserves, about 215 trillion scoff, is actually non-associated gas. There's over-reliance on gas you get when you drill crude onshore. So if you look at the fact that in 2023, 2024, SPDC sold off about 582 oil wells to Renaissance, which is a consortium owned by ND Western, Aradel, and the likes of them, Walter Smith, and Petrolin. Currently, Aradel Holdings owns about 53% of it because they bought 88% of ND Western. The discounted gas that SPDC was selling to NLNG as a shareholder in NLNG, that regime ended because when Renaissance took over and they started producing gas and started depreciating the loan that they took to buy the asset for $2.4 billion from SPDC, they came to the table and renegotiated the cost of gas per scoff to NLNG. You know, and NLNG has confirmed that over 50% of their purchase of gas, you know, for the first time is actually coming outside of their joint venture partners. So you have a situation, for example, where there is not enough gas because you don't have infrastructure to take gas from most of those fields offshore inland, number one. Number two, because crude oil production has gone down and you don't have proper accounting in the official markets, in the official primary regulated markets for crude oil, because averagely, on a cumulative average basis, about 1 barrel of crude gives you about 6,000 standard cubic feet of gas, and you need about 44,000 standard cubic feet of gas to produce 1 metric ton of LNG, right? Because you don't have enough production or proper accounting for the crude that is produced in Nigeria, the amount of gas feedstock that is coming to the market has actually reduced. And we're currently at about 8 billion standard cubic feet on a daily basis, right? There's been an increase in the use of gas by gas-based industries, domestic use of gas in Nigeria, even if the off-takers for domestic gas under the domestic gas delivery obligations are having to buy gas at export prices, right? So you have a confluence of issues that is as a result of a lack of commercial and legal framework that will incentivize investors to put money in non-associated gas wells. You also have the fact that there is vandalization of pipes, pipeline security and insecurity, and that has affected the movement of gas from wellheads when you trap it to central processing, to calibration and designation nodes and central processing facilities, before it goes to those processing plants.
Mr. Emmanuel, you are throwing up a lot of terminologies this morning: capacity utilization, non-utilization, clear line of sight for investment, which may not necessarily be clear to those who are not in the oil and gas industry. The interaction between Mr. President and the NLNG board looks to me like a fallout of the meeting with Mr. President and the governors, where Mr. President is telling the governors, to intervene and ensure that the benefits of fuel subsidy removal gets to the people, which the governors should really, take the initiative without a prompt. So it looks like, the president is challenging the NLNG to show up and effectively work in line with its mandate, the mandate establishing the NLNG. One of the things that I clearly understand you say is there is an infrastructure deficit. Now, the NLNG has been in existence since 1989, from what you have said. So what is the missing link? What has been responsible for this lack of infrastructure to ensure our the potential of Nigeria's gas is utilized for the benefit of Nigerians. I mean, we have 15 trillion gas deposits in the country. So perhaps you should break it down in simple language.
Bukola, thank you for your question. Well, I think we're conflating issues. We actually have 215 trillion standard cubic feet of proven and probable reserves. First of all, the reason why the president is asking NLNG to, increase the utilization of gas in Nigeria and reduce flaring is because there is a cost of living crisis in Nigeria. Within the last 10 years, exchange rate has dropped over 90%. Dollar went from 190 something, is now at 1,005. That has had a consequence on the price of petrol, price of diesel, price of Jet A1 that has influenced the price of airplane tickets, because, of the exchange rate. And then the government couldn't, afford subsidy, remove subsidy. Dangote refinery came on stream, the market is more liberalized. So the cost of living crisis is the reason why the president President Buhari set up, God bless his soul, presidential CNG initiative that has also been added, that's also been expanded to include the electric vehicles, right? So we need to situate issues properly. NLNG doesn't have any correlation or link whatsoever with CNG because NLNG's mandate is not to produce CNG. NLNG's mandate is to take natural gas, like I said, treat it from wet to lean gas at the central processing facility after it's been calibrated and the pressure has been calibrated, at designated node, and then separate the gas. When you separate methane from propane and butane, methane is now frozen into liquefied natural gas and is exported mostly. Just a little percentage of it is actually used in Nigeria because of the limits of CNG in terms of travel. So NLNG does not have any correlation whatsoever with compressed natural gas and mother and daughter stations. So, when you talk about gas processing, I'll give you, our audience, a background. Natural gas, when it's separated at CPFs to methane, some of that methane is actually dried into what they call compressed natural gas. That's what you use for your CNG trucks and your CNG vehicles that you have today, and it's put in skids and it's transported. Some of the LNG is taken because LNG travels farther than CNG, right? The natural gas, some of it is sent to the domestic market, about 1.6 billion SCOF, standard cubic feet of it is sent for electricity generation around the country, about 19 thermal plants you have. And then you have natural gas that is actually sent to the export markets for use in production of fertilizers. You have natural gas that is sent to NLNG that they use to produce methane, and they also separate, LNG from methane, and they also separate into LPG, propane, and butane. So I need us to understand that we can focus on cost of living crisis and how that has influenced the mandate of PCING, or we can focus on NLNG and how it has impacted on production of LNG and the export of LNG and the contribution of the dividends and withholding taxes to the government's purse, which in my opinion needs interrogation because you have issues around proper accounting of product equity deducted by NNPC as a shareholder.
Mr. Emmanuel, I'm saying, why did the president have to tell the NLNG to do its job? I'm not saying that the NLNG has business with CNG. Because the job of the NLNG is to harness Nigeria's natural gas potential. So why did the president have to prompt the NLNG to do its job?
I mean, Bukola, it's an irony that the president is telling NLNG to do his job. And I'll tell you why I said it's an irony. It's an irony because, in fact, it's the president that is not actually doing his job as a minister of petroleum. I'll say that with my chest. Look, and I'll tell you why I said that. Number one, you have the fact that Nigeria is not getting the full benefits and revenues from the prices of gas that is sold, NNPC share of the gas that is sold for, processing. So the government needs to interrogate the methodology used by NGML, which is a subsidiary of NNPC, for selling gas. Because one of the first things Renaissance did when they took over and started production is that they came to the table and told NLNG that the price at which they are taking gas from them no longer subsist, and they have to renegotiate those prices. And the prices has to actually align with export parity, because in the gas markets in Nigeria, there are two pricing models. There is the domestic gas delivery obligations, like you have a national reference code the government developed that places a cap on the domestic base price of gas. And that is around $2.18 for gas-based, for power production, and about $2.50 for gas-based industries. The export market prices are about 2.5 times that. In fact, it goes as high as $9 per mm scuff. In Obajana, Dangote buys gas at $9 per mm scuff for use in his cement plant in Obajana, right? So if there's a difference between the prices of the domestic market, where the government placed a cap as a subsidy, and the export market, export parity market, it means that there is distortion in the market and there's no incentive to actually invest, because there's legal obligation for producers to designate a share of the gas they produce to the domestic market. And what they are saying is that, why should we produce if you're forcing us to sell at a discount to the domestic market? Why can't you review the model to ensure that the domestic prices will actually flow to the export prices? But the government is afraid that it will actually affect power prices, you know? So the government has not done a good job in auditing the gas it sells to NLNG, which is the role of NGML for the share that it owns. Number two, there's also the issue of the fact that gas is taken as equity LNG. As NNPC is a shareholder of NLNG, 49% shareholder, product equity is deducted from NLNG. Now, in that structure, in that IJVC structure, the IJVC, that's a company, set up a company called NSML that is supposed to handle transport and logistics for the IJVC. But NNPC went ahead and created another company parallel to NSML. It deducts product equity. It takes the product equity and sells under what they call direct exchange, DEX. And in the annual financial statement of NNPC, I've not seen any line that says that this is the revenue accrual from the export and trading of product LNG deducted from NLNG under DEX framework. That's the second issue that we have to address. You have the issue of the fact that you don't have a commercial and legal framework that will create incentive for operators to invest in non-associated gas. If you look at OML 144, H1, that was, FID was commissioned for, right? It's going to be producing gas. Most of that gas is owned by Sunlink and one other company, is going to be nominated to NLNG because they have a shortage of feedstock. Today, I'll tell you that NLNG needs about 2 billion standard cubic feet of gas extra per day when Train 7 comes on stream, because Train 7 alone is 1 billion scuff on a daily basis in terms of quantity it needs to produce. If it doesn't get the gas to produce, it will not bring the LNG and the LPG it needs to earn income to pay the government dividends and withholding taxes. These are the issues that Mr. President himself needs to interrogate. So it's an irony that he's telling NLNG to do more, because it is his job as a Minister of Petroleum, which is an anomaly that he's the Minister of Petroleum and President at the same time, to interrogate these technical issues that I have raised, to ensure that the Federation is not being cheated in revenues and that they have money to fund budget deficits. Because today, as we speak, performance for capital expenditure is less than 20%.
Yeah.
But you have infrastructure project that is outside of the Appropriation Act.
Yeah. Mr. Emmanuel, so what do you suggest, Mr. President, what do you suggest he does? Because I'm sure he learns from his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, who was also Minister of Petroleum. So do you think we should put an end to that antecedent? My second question would be, if the NLNG successfully increases domestic gas availability, how long would it take for the average Nigerian or Nigerian household to feel the impact in terms of lower electricity bills and cheaper cooking gas? Mr. Emmanuel.
Thank you for your question. You know, NLNG also, again, does not have any role to play in Nigeria's electricity generation because they don't have a thermal plant that processes gas into power, okay? The immediate consequence for what they do is LPG, but the LPG prices are not discounted. They're actually sold are modeled along TTF and Henry Hub prices, which is a global benchmark like Platts. So even if NLNG increases the supply of LPG to the Nigerian market, it's still going to be priced at international pricing benchmark. So if the international pricing benchmark is high because of the exchange rate, Nigerians are still going to be buying LPG. 12 kg cylinder is going for as high as 18,000 naira for a 12 kg cylinder. The question is, how do we reduce the price of LPG per kilogram and increase the consumption of LPG per capita, and also reduce the use of kerosene stoves and charcoal for cooking because of the price of LPG? That's the question that we should be asking. That's the question that his Minister of Petroleum needs to be tackling. Not what NLNG. NLNG's role, like I said, is mostly on LNG exports and how that affects dividends to NNPC as a 49% shareholder and the withholding taxes it pays. I also bring you another issue, another very topical issue, because there was a Supreme Court ruling between NLNG and NIMASA from 16th of January 2026 this year, where the Supreme Court had affirmed that based on the sovereign guarantees that the Nigerian government gave to NLNG at the Section 7 of the NLNG Act of 1989, that NIMASA, that has subsidiary legislative authority, does not have subsidiary delegated authority, does not have the right to collect custom duties and levies and MPA collect concession rentals for the ports that NLNG operates in Finima and Bonny, right? And that is a flaw of legislation, because in 1999, what the National Assembly should have done was they should have put a sunset clause that places a limit on how far those custom duty exemptions, levies, and concession rentals would have been due. It should have been stated that it is within your build-out period, or the period where you recover the capital you invested in building train 1 to 6, and not give them a sovereign guarantee that gives them an unlimited time frame without sunset clauses. And that has cost the government, in my estimate, about $33 billion since October 1999, when they started production and exports. That is another question we should address. So is there a need for a National Assembly or legislative review of the act that establishes the NLNG? Because these are the questions that I expect the President and his Minister of Finance and coordinating minister to be asking stakeholders and bring them to the table to talk about. They came to the villa to see him, and the topical issues that he's supposed to be discussing, he's not discussing with them, and he's telling them that they need to do more. On what basis? Under what framework? I don't understand it.
All right. So I was trying to get to that piece of legislation. I was actually trying to look at that piece of legislation. I think I found it. Where you're talking about that period of, let me use a layman's term, because there's a lot of technical term that has flown around. Grace period, some exemption period that should have been, was it for 10 years from the point of production? Because now we have segued into another conversation altogether that is related. Was the incentive, because the title of that legislation was actually Nigeria LNG Fiscal Incentives, Guarantees and Assurances Act. It's a Decree 39 in 1989. Operation started in 1999. So was it a 10-year period that should have ended, say, in 2009, or it was perpetual?
The legislation actually grants them perpetual protection from the government. There was no sunset clause in that legislation that says that it's for your build-out period or the period where you recoup your capital investments, right? Even for under NEBSA, even for the free trade zone that Dangote is operating in, the government is, running around and, hovering around the NEBSA Act and saying that probably they are going to provide a sunset clause, for the free trade zone, right? So if the free trade zone has sunset clause, why are you saying that NLNG Act is for perpetuity and there's no sunset clause? Because that was the basis on which the Supreme Court ruled that NIMASA does not have local standing to challenge NLNG on NIMASA and MP on custom duties and levies and concession rentals for the ports that it operates.
So the question
Section
now will
7,
be...
Sections 9,
my
paragraph
apologies.
3 of Schedule 2.
My apologies, please. So now with all these encumbrances that you've raised that are perhaps is not a big conversation, perhaps because it's not an all-comers conversation, what will be the fate of the government if we now commit this responsibility that the president is wooing them to take on as far as, minimizing gas flaring is concerned? Should we be looking for another maybe company or just work on the legislation to accommodate some of these things you're talking about?
So, the way to reduce gas flaring, gas flaring offshore has been reduced significantly. Gas flaring offshore is less than 5%. Most of the gas flaring you have is actually onshore. The way to reduce gas flaring, right, is to model the price of gas under the domestic gas delivery obligations in sections 108 of the PIA and ensure that you begin to see that it floats and gradually aligns with export parity. And the new authority chief executive officer of the NMDPR, Malam Rabi Umar, has suggested that he is going to start the process of actually setting up a capability model to model gas prices under DGDO. Because when you create an incentive through price for investors to trap the gas, send the gas to those designated nodes to be calibrated, and then from the nodes, send it to the central processing facilities where it's processed from wet to lean gas, and then you take it to the aggregators. You increase the, commercial incentive for these operators to invest in the infrastructure needed to take the gas through the supply chain. But if the pricing is not right, it will cost them more to take it. So what they do is that they flare it and they pay flare penalties to the NUPRC. And even at that, NUPRC today is not collecting flare penalties based on the new rates that the PIA suggests. So it's cheaper for them to pay fair penalties to the government than it is for them to invest in infrastructure to take the gas to the markets because the price is not right for them to take the gas to the markets. These are the technical issues that I expect that the president will tackle, and not telling NLNG, making a blanket statement that they should do more. What does it mean exactly when he said they should do more?
So what would it take to get more investors to look the way of providing some form of, framework? Maybe framework is not the word now. Providing some form of, production capacity such that Nigerians can benefit from the industry. And what would it take to change the legislation, the international pricing, yes, of gas, such that Nigerians can also benefit from it?
Bukola, very good question. So, you need to set up what I call a non-associated and associated gas fiscal reinjection act. You need to set up a commercial framework for non-associated gas, because 52% of the proven and probable reserves of gas in Nigeria, and Nigeria is more of a gas nation than an oil nation, by the way, 52% is non-associated gas. What it means is that 52% of the gas reserves in Nigeria is gas that is completely independent of crude oil. It's not gas that you get when you drill crude. So if that is the case, and countries, for example, like Qatar does less than 1.5 million barrels a day. Qatar produces less oil than Nigeria. But Qatar earns 6 times the revenue from LNG that Nigeria earns. Why? Because it is focused most of its investment, 90% of its investment, in wells that produce only gas and that has nothing to do with crude oil. And it's processing that gas into LNG, LPG, and the likes of them. Now, if you look at the frontier basins, for example, the chairman of Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Committee, MD Shehu, and his team, they went to Bauchi, Komani, 89 under the own Gongola Basin recently. And he was talking about reviving the basin between Gombe and Bauchi. And if you look at that Komani, if you look at Lower Chad, if you look at the Sokoto Basin, if you look at the Lower Benue Trough and the Middle Benue Trough, Nasarawa, Benue, Anambra, Ebonyi, all of those places that have deposits of crude oil but doesn't have it in actual commercial quantities, but actually has more natural gas. You'll see that instead of invest in building pipeline infrastructure to take gas from the south, from Rivers State, Abia State, and all those surrounding states down to the north, it's more sensible for you to invest in drilling non-associated gas wells, right, and attach it to, you know, a pressure metering and reduction stations and aggregate that gas for the northern market instead of build expensive pipelines from the south down to the north, right? So the key here is a lack of actual legal and commercial framework. Like you had ACFA that was done in 2004, reviewed in 2007, and then further reviewed in 2021, but that is actually not been reviewed properly. A legal and commercial framework that gives commercial incentive for operators to invest in non-associated gas. And that's going to be mostly under the production sharing contract offshore framework. That is the key, that is the foundation. And that's what I expect the minister. Taiwo has been in office for 3 months as a new Minister of Finance and coordinating the economy. It's yet to be seen what he's going to do with it, but that's what I expect him as the coordinating minister and the Minister of Petroleum to sit down on the table and do. It's the heavy lifting that they don't want to do. Instead, they are, bringing up new executive orders that doesn't move the needle. They brought up production tax credit and supplementary production tax credit to create incentives, and they're giving $11.50 per barrel on Bonga North, Bonga Southwest apparel fields. But how do you incentivize investments in non-associated gas wells so that when you have gas feedstock, you have the need to commission projects like Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline, which is that pipeline project that's supposed to run across 13 countries all the way to Morocco and to Spain. You have investments in new LNG trains. In fact, there's likelihood that Dangote might even be talking about investing in LNG up to 10 million metric tons per annum in a local line on those states, right? But you need gas feedstock available for you to, have the investors whet their appetites to want to bring money to put down on the table.
All right.
The gas feedstock is not available.
Mr. Manuel, so we are absolutely pressed for time. You've mentioned legal and commercial framework. I wonder if politics have anything to do with all of this. You've mentioned legal and commercial framework, but I'm wondering if perhaps there's politics in all of this. But just speak to, because you're an expert, maybe in 20 seconds or less, there's a drop in crude prices internationally, but there's still these high prices at the pump price. Just in 20 seconds, please. Why?
Because the difference between the futures price and the spot price, right? The lack of enough supply of crude oil because of destruction of fields in the Middle East has created a distortion in the market where there is a huge difference between the futures price which you're seeing and the spot price of petrol. So the futures price you're seeing online is not the same with the actual spot delivery price of petrol. So if you want to know the difference, then pay attention to the Brent spread, which measures that difference. That's the reason. It's going to take like 6 months for the market to normalize and for that gap to close. Before the war started in Iran, that gap was between $1 and $2. Today, it's trading at $12 to $15. So the price you see online is not the actual price of physical cargo delivery of crude to refineries around the world.
That's another conversation for another day. But I think you've done justice to the conversation around the NLNG and the gas. A lot of Nigerians will have to watch and follow and understand the depth of what we're dealing with here, because while the federal government is looking for money, money is just passing and strolling away. Kelvin Emmanuel, CEO, Energy Consulting Practice, and also an energy policy expert. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And we move from here to football, sports, specifically football, with the resignation of the board members of the NFF, while a veteran has his voice on this one. Kelly.
All right, Mr. Segun Odegbami joins us live on the program. He's a 1980 AFCON winner, former Super Eagles captain, former Nigerian international. Thank you so much, Mr. Odegbami, for agreeing to talk to us on the program. Yesterday was your birthday. You turned 74 yesterday. So
who told you so?
We are journalists.
Please stop announcing what is not politically correct.
I wonder if that's your football age, Mr. Odegbami.
Yes, that's my football age.
All right. Happy birthday in arrears, sir. It's such a pleasure to have you join us here on the program. So Nigerians have been trying to recover and wonder what exactly is playing out with this sector, the sporting sector, particularly football, which appears to be the only thing that unifies Nigeria, whether it's northern Nigeria or southern Nigeria. Football is the only thing that brings us together. But for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, consecutively, back-to-back, we have missed out on the global stage, the FIFA World Cup, which is the biggest tournament in football. And then the Super Falcons of Nigeria, who for 10 times have brought some sort of glory and joy. They have missed out on the World Cup as well, you know, for the first time, I think I can't remember how long now. But we hear that the NFF president, Ibrahim Gusau, has resigned, his secretary, as general secretary as well, which is very, very strange. I wonder what you make of what is playing out in the NFF.
Thank you very much again for having me. The situation really is that in the past almost 30 years or so, we have tied ourselves into a knot. So over time, it has become so difficult to untie the knots and understand the different moving parts in what makes up the football match that you see on the football field. The end product is the failure that you have seen at different levels, you know, in our football. But the core of it is that we are in a knot. Very few people understand how we got to this point and how to untie ourselves from it. So that's the problem. We have removed, one way or the other, the people on the board, and we might as well just say, look, let's get a new set to go on, but we'll get the same results. So what we really need to do is for everybody to have an understanding, because football is a sport that everybody is an expert. Everybody has an answer, and everybody is right. But you see, there is the answer, which is not clear to everybody. If you ask government now, what should we do next? We have removed the people you said have failed. There are very few people that have the answers. And the answer lies in unknotting this complicated situation that we have that is not making things clear, so that everybody can have a clear idea of what we need to do to move forward. So that's where we are right now. We have cleared that small issue, but then what do we do next?
Speaking of which, sir, the NFF boss said in his statement yesterday that he was leaving football better than he met it. And, you know, he's made some form of achievement prior, you know, to his resignation. What do you make of that statement against the backdrop of what should be done next?
Well, I'm sure he believes what he says. And if you look at the issues that he's talking about, yes, he has achieved some level of success. But as far as the man on the street is concerned, if your team does not win on the field of football, you have lost. That is the only measure for success or failure of a sport like football. You have to have a production line, a seamless production line, so that every year, as Brazil has done, they have always gone to the World Cup. So that you have a system where, as in England, you don't hear every 4 years that they are quarreling over becoming president or not becoming president. You don't hear of people going to court. You don't hear of so many issues. You don't even hear of the most basic one, which is that of NFF. NFF itself is not recognized in Nigerian law. There's a subsisting court judgment that has not been vacated up till now. It has been there for almost 10 years. That says that the NFF is an illegal body. It is the NFA that exists. And there's something in a name. Between the NFF and the NFA, there's a whole lot in just naming it one or the other. Because if you say NFF, it is something political that is like an association of associations, of the state association. If you say NFA, it is not an association of the state associations. So, but these are, you know, little details that will be clearer when we now lay everything bare. We untie everything, and everybody sits down and sees all the different components. And you can call the president, and he will understand what the issues are. We can call you on radio. You understand what the issues are. Everybody would understand. But right now, nobody understands anything. it is all so complicated that you said he came and said that he succeeded. Yes, he succeeded. But in the eyes of Nigerians, he is a failure. So what do we do? That's the big question.
Yes, it's quite a wonder. I don't know whether success or effort is what he's talking about. In fact, there are two issues I want you to speak to. I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, there was a contract with the Nike, I think for about 11 years, signed by Amaju Pinnick for, let me call it a miserly $500,000, is it per year? I think he talked about reviewing that contract with another company altogether. The reason I had to bring that before my main question is the fact that what is playing out at the football house, is it partly because persons like you and those who are the real practitioners, on-field practitioners who represented the country at different points, are not really involved as you should be involved? Just, I don't know what to call these other gentlemen, whether they are administrators. Does that have a role to play in how we're seeing the football industry, if you will, play out in our country?
Absolutely. You said it all. We are presenting, in terms of administration, our third 11. Everybody is in the system. We are all in the system. But you see, there are different levels of it. There are primary constituencies, there are secondary constituencies, there are honorary constituencies, there are affiliates in the system. But everybody is lumped up, so you don't know who is important, who is who. Everybody has an answer. So you cannot succeed that way. You need to put the people who are experts in their different fields to come and work in the areas in football where they can excel. You want to set up a marketing committee, for example, and you go and bring somebody who has no background in marketing to come and help you manage such a complex issue as Nike contract with Nigeria over a period of time. That is what we are seeing. You have a technical committee where you don't have former footballers who have become coaches, who have trained and all of that, who can analyze games to head the technical committee. Instead, you put a politician, and so on and so forth. So when you have that kind of composition in the leadership structure of your organization, of course, you will end up never getting the best out of it. So what we need to do is, look, get the right people into the right positions. All of us know it, and we know that it is not the right people that are in those positions presently. So that's not what we need to sort out.
Well, Mr. Dema, maybe two questions in one. Mr. President has had to wade in. He has directed some sort of reforms. Are you optimistic about the directives from the presidency? And then question two, Mr. Faniamu, who was asked to chair a fact-finding committee recently and made some sort of investigations into the activities of the NFF. He made some very strong allegations. He said the NFF board members, when they go for tournaments and competitions, their extra code or full allowances are paid in full, while the players themselves and the coaching staff most times receive very little. I wonder what you make of that revelation.
Well, I'm sure you don't expect me to go into such an issue, on television. I cannot confirm, I cannot deny, I cannot say anything about it. But in terms of the president's directive that there should be reforms, of course, that's what he has been told, that the problem is that there's need for reformation somewhere in the system. And he has given that responsibility to the agency responsible, which is the National Sports Commission. So the National Sports Commission, yes, must now do the reform. That's what I'm talking about. We must sit down. They must get a group of experts to sit down and start to untie the knots. We've knotted ourselves into it. If you ask the chairman of the National Sports Commission today what the problems are, he will reel them out for you. You ask the DG, he will reel them out for you. You ask me, I will reel them out for you. Look at all the details. You will find that they are all different. We all have different answers. So we need to sit down and get the right people, experts in different fields, to look at where we are coming from, where we got it wrong, where do we want to go. We are in a new world presently. Things have changed, things have developed. We have to catch up. So we get them, sit down. It won't take long. Over a period of 2 weeks, 3, even 1 month, you would have the answers. And every single Nigerian, if you really break it down, the way an engineer will break down a problem, every Nigerian will understand at the end of it what the problems were, where we are now, and where we are going. And you carry everybody along. And you will now find that within a very short time, my prediction is that
Well, would have loved to know what that prediction would be, especially as it has to do with Nigerian football. Will things change subsequently without a structure? And the concern, that our approach towards international tournaments is always, last minute, assembling international players to, come together in camp just, a month to the international tournament. And can we look at really the performance of the federation independently of the performance of the Sports Commission itself? That would be, an interesting poser for the ex-international and former Super Eagles captain to answer as well. Guys, I'm sure you would have thoughts on that as well. We've had the board, one by one begin to turn in their resignation. But can we look at the performance of the board independent of the Sports Commission, which is the superintending commission over sports administration in Nigeria?
I was particularly surprised that they resigned, not because because the way the FIFA is a governing body of football, they are very strict with interference. So when the security agencies swooped in, investigations about mismanagement of funds, I was a bit, concerned on how FIFA, as a matter of fact, I don't know. I stand to be corrected, but I don't know whether FIFA has actually reacted to this, or CAF itself has actually even reacted to what is playing out in Nigerian football, because they are very, very careful not to have any political interference. But the results are there to speak for themselves. I don't know what Gusau means by being successful. I can't remember. How long has he been in charge now? Is he up to 2 years?
I think it should be more than.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what it means by success. What is success? Success is we're able to go to tournaments. That's success number one. Then how far we go to those tournaments is success number two. So if we didn't achieve that, I don't know what it means. But the veteran, I understand, is back. So you can continue with your thoughts as we begin to wrap up, sir.
Well, I'm sorry for that power, in my village here in Wasimi. So as I was saying, I'm talking about the reforms. So all of us will have different answers to that problem. So we need to
Oh my God.
His village people are back. According to him.
He even called them out.
His village people mean him. They don't mean well for him, but that's mathematical Adegbami, veteran. I don't know whether Bukola was born when he played football.
Were you born when he played football?
I was born the year he played football. He won the AFCON. That was 98. Yeah, okay. I don't hide my age, so
I'm glad you mentioned that. You mentioned Bukola.
No, you were not. You were far away. Don't even go there. You were very far. So
Jeffrey's dropping age for us this morning. Well, I'm not going to get into that conversation, but we must. Go ahead, Kelly.
I mean, we have to anchor at this point. Again, happy birthday to Mr. Segun Odegbami. Thank you indeed. 1980 AFCON winner. He's also the former Super Eagles captain, former Nigerian international. I was going to also reveal that just this morning at 74, he did some sort of workout. That's a big challenge to some of us who do not exercise. Bukola, you have the next one.
Yes, indeed. And this is a very worrying matter that has been brought to our attention and indeed the attention of Nigerians following the petition by a young man to social media influencer, Very Dark Man, that one of his kidneys was removed during a visit to a hospital in Abuja. The medical doctor who performed that operation has now been arrested. And we have the lawyer to Very Dark Man joining us to talk more about that. But this issue throws up, the concern around organ harvesting in Nigeria and, the trend, how far it is, it is being perpetrated. We're supposed to have the doctor, the young man whose kidney was removed, join us to talk more about this. But perhaps will be joining us later on the program. But let's also have joining us now, besides the lawyer to Very Dark Man joining us, we'll also be having Mr. Linus Awute, former Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Health, joining us on the program. All right, let's have Mr. Abubakar, lawyer to Very Dark Man, joining us on the program now. Mr. Abubakar, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Good morning.
All right. Before we get into the details of the doctor, let's understand the scale, and the evidence to prove that indeed the kidney of this young man was removed. How did he discover it? The subsequent medical reports that proved that his kidney was removed. Let's have the details.
Yeah, when the young man approached the Martins Vincent initiative, the MBOI, which is headed by a man people know as a Very Dark Man, we were quite very skeptical because we didn't really believe that a young man would go to a hospital and his vital organs will be unlawfully harvested. So we asked him to come back and then get some medical proof. So the young man came back with a medical report to show the absence of his left kidney. We were quite curious ourselves, so we decided to also embark on verifying the medical document it came with, the medical report it came with. So we went to two separate hospitals in Abuja, a reputable private hospital and another government hospital, which is the Federal Medical Center in Jabi in Abuja here, where it was confirmed that indeed the young man's left kidney has been removed. I must also add that organ transplant in Nigeria, strictly sensu, is not a crime. But when certain modalities are not fulfilled, or when certain conditions are not met, or there's some sort of unlawful harvesting, then that's what makes it a crime. So in this context, in relation to this young man, and this young man, not just the young man, because there are quite several of them as we get to find out, it's purely a criminal enterprise.
So some medical reports, and I'd like you to verify this for us, maybe from the doctors of this young man and the young man itself, say that a person is able to function with one kidney. But let's have the medical health condition of this young man. Talk to us about what it's like, what it's looking like currently.
Yeah, one good kidney can function properly. Preferably, it's better too, but one can function properly. The young man is a very young person. I think he's about 22 years of age or thereabout. I can't really recall. So he's still a very young person. So he still has a very good single functional kidney that can really serve. But in his case, now the certain procedures were not strictly complied with. And so I think after a while, when the young man did it, after about a month or thereabout, the young man started seeing some pulse come out from the left side of his kidney, of his ribs, just beneath the rib cartridge level. So the young man now went to open up to his mother and informed the mother that I think he explained to the mother. So I think after the kidney transplant was the kidney was unlawfully harvested. They pleaded with the young man, and I think they gave him $1,300 or thereabout, about 1.5 million naira in Nigerian value at that time. So they gave him just this kind of, okay, just take this and shut up. And then the procedure they also adopted, I think, is quite very fraudulent and then quite very unfortunate. The young man's name was changed by an affidavit where he was given a name which is not his name, just to conceal the criminal enterprise they intended to embark on. So the young man's name was changed, his identity was changed. He was asked to go to a court to depose an affidavit. A lawyer was involved too. He would depose an affidavit where these procedures were not carried out in line with international best practices and in line with the laws of Nigeria, particularly the National Health Act, which is the primary law which governs this particular area of kidney transplant and other related issues. And then the NAPTIC parts, the Prohibition Against Persons Act of 2025. So these laws were clearly not complied with in harvesting these particular organs of this young man or these young persons, and that's why it became a legal issue as we have it.
So how many, just as a reminder to our audience, how many young men were affected, the victims this time?
From what we learned of, a lot of them are quite very skeptical of coming forth because of the publicity it has not generated. But I think they're quite them. In short, I have it on good authority that most of those boys around Massacre, Nyanya, Maraba access, a lot of them are engaged in this unlawful some of those hospitals lure these young men into harvesting their organs illegally without complying with the legal process. But think about 10 or more than that now are not involved. But we have coming forth now.
That's quite a number. So, in terms of complicity, so where I wanted to go with that question was the fact that is it a question of the young men or the doctors taking advantage of them, or there was a level of consent, so that we're clear on what we're dealing with? Because I'm looking at it based on the total number of persons who are involved. So from your record as a lawyer, these young men did not know that whatever was being done to them was actually about harvesting their organs. Is that what you're saying?
This is another form of poverty weaponization. We have vulnerable young men and unethical doctors. Now, these young men are vulnerable in the context that these young men needed money. They are short of funds. We have all sorts of vices in the country that we have today now. So these young men, because they are vulnerable, these doctors they have agents through which they reach out to these young men and they lure them in, and then they harvest their organs and then give them some form of financial inducement after the process. Now, under the law, under the Nigerian law, both Nigerian law and international obligations, which Nigeria is a signatory to, any form of financial inducements that emanates from a particular hospital, medical practitioner, or a would-be donee to an unwilling or even a willing donor, once there is financial inducement or exchange of funds, as you have in this instance, it becomes unlawful. So in this context, these young men were actually approved. They were not told they were harvesting their organs at that time. Some of them went to some of the hospitals for medical conditions, and the hospital now check and discover that they have very good and strong viable kidneys, which will suffice for the intended transplant they want to do. Like in some of these instances, I was informed on good authority that some of these donors, which the hospital sold these kidneys, some of these donees, which the hospital sold some of these kidneys to, pay as high as 50 to 70 million naira. But these hospitals, because they've now turned it into a business, organ harvesting is now a big business in this part of the world. They take these kidneys from these vulnerable young men, some of them underage clearly, and then they give to these persons who require them, and then they take a lot of money from them and give these young persons peanuts without passing through the appropriate level process. It's just the act of taking a kidney from a person under some sort of inducement and give it to another person for financial gains is a crime itself. So both the hospital and the medical practitioners and the doctors that are involved have already committed a crime sensu under the law in this area. So when you ask a young person, or under whatever context and circumstances, to donate a kidney to you, and then you take these kidneys and sell to somebody else, then it is a crime. So for the donation of an organ to be lawful, there must be informed consent of an adult person. There must also be no form of financial inducement. In this context, there were financial inducement and there was no proper consent. And there was fraud in the sense of forging an affidavits with a different name, just to ensure that the identity of this young person is concealed, because probably they must have foreseen that we'll have this kind of legal issues in the future.
Yes, just before we let you go, so confirm for us, perhaps, if the family members of these boys were aware or in the know about this decision.
They were not no family member, and this raises other ethical issues, which we think are quite very fundamental. No family member of this young man was involved. None of their parents was carried along. It was after the entire thing boomerang and became an issue that their parents got involved and their parents got to know. So these hospitals just let these young men take their kidney and give them peanuts to go away. I think this is quite unfortunate. It shouldn't be. And since we have a situation, I think it's something we must fight legally within the FCT. We cannot have such situations in Abuja here.
Well, we must thank you very much for bringing this issue to our notice, and also thank your client for this social responsibility. And the awareness must continue to deter organ harvesting and the illegal removal of organs of unsuspecting young persons to exploit them, for financial benefit. Mr. Marshall Abubakar is a legal practitioner and lawyer to social media influencer, Very Dark Man. Thank you for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
From here, we get to a very exciting conversation. We're going to be very relaxed on this one because we're going to be chatting with a senior colleague who is marking 50 years in broadcast journalism. Jeffrey, you have this one?
Yes, and the one and only Bimbole, the veteran journalist and producer, joins us right here. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Jeffrey.
Good to see you.
Good morning,
Good to see you, ma'am.
I think we're meeting for the first time.
Yeah, such a
very
privilege and honor to meet you.
Thank you.
50 years.
Believe it or not.
I'm supposed to be the one to be asking.
No, you have
Why in a hurry?
No, you have to, because
All of us are hurrying to ask.
No,
Okay.
No. I'm just going to say 50. Some of us were never even conceived.
not even thought of.
Jeff said we're very far away.
She's our benefit of hindsight. And congratulations, ma'am. I think that's a very natural place to start. Anyone who has done anything for 50 years, that's a lot and cannot be overlooked. So maybe we'll allow you. I know we've had this conversation over and over, but this is the first time we're hitting 50. So let's walk back again. 50 years down the line. What did you see? What are you seeing? And what do you see?
What did I see? I saw passion. What do I see? I still see passion. And what am I imagining that I will continue to see? Is passion. Because there are so many things that make it difficult to operate within the media that there's got to be something more than just writing your story, reading the news, conducting an interview. There's got to be more than that. And honestly, I think that's the word, is passion.
Wow. After 50 years.
Yes, because for someone like me, the thing that is most exciting is that every day is different. You may sit in this chair every day, but you talk to different people every day. You learn new things every day. You can express yourself differently every day. So as I said, for someone like me that gets bored quickly, this is something that I don't get tired of doing.
I always like to say persons within your generation, including our chairman, are our benefit of hindsight. Tell us what it was in this sphere. I'm sure you see what is happening.
Yes, I do.
In the broadcast space. But the foundation was laid by persons like you, and the chairman addressed them. What was it like?
We actually did not lay the foundations. It was people like late Dr. Christopher Kolade, people like, and they're all late, people like late Chief Segun Olushola, people like late Elder Steve Rhodes. These were the people who laid the foundations. There are more, but these are the ones that come to me immediately. They also had an understanding of what this industry was all about. They had a love for it. They had standards that they were not willing to go beneath. And they held you to that standard. I mean, I remember many years ago, we used to have in the continuity booth, we don't have continuity announcers now, but in those days we had a continuity booth. There was a phone, there were two phones. One had a red light, one had a green light. So if you messed up, the red light would flash. And if the green light flashed, it was simply that they had information for you. But when that red light begins to flash, one of these people who is watching, because that's another thing, you see, monitoring. Yeah. One of these people were watching, and they would pick you up immediately. If they felt that the mistake was that bad, somebody would be standing by to take over. Oh, yes. Yes.
This was on television.
Yes.
Wow.
In those days, that's what happened. I mean, you would have a Christopher Collade saying, "Excuse me, young lady, but where exactly do you think you are? Do you think you're in your sitting room or your lounge or your bedroom, or are you really addressing the public?"
When you look at my own generation and below, please tell us our concerns, please, because I mean you've mentioned passion, you've mentioned standards, standards.
Yes.
You've not mentioned character, but when you look at my generation and below, how much of a challenge are issues around that? Professionalism, standard, issues around character as well, so long as this profession is concerned.
I think maybe the younger generation, to some degree, have been, what is the word to use, have been blinded by the fact that their faces are known, their voices are known, their names are known. And somehow, because there are times when I train and I can tell those who have teachable spirits. And I can tell those who are thinking to themselves, what's all this? What's all this fuss about? You know, why is she being so particular? After all, I'm doing the job, and people know me, and people wave to me, you know, people recognize me. So what's the big deal? But then I also say to them, okay, so somebody waved at you in recognition. Did they wave at you and say, by the way, that program that you presented the other day, or the program that you produced, oh, it was wonderful. I don't know how you got that idea, or where did you get that idea from? Or did they just wave and pass by? There's a difference. So the waving, you shouldn't be satisfied with just waves. That's my take.
So much to learn from you. We used to watch you and the Ruth Benemesia of Peers of this World on television, reading the news. As a matter of fact, Jeffrey calls you our hindsight. You were also, she's also a member of the family here.
Better than an ancestor, which I've been called before.
Yeah, we watched you on Channels Television. I watched you a lot on Channels Television here before I joined reading the news. So there's so much to learn from you. And I also want you to talk about the evolution of the profession itself, broadcast journalism. Just months ago, we were put on the spot by the NBC on the matter of opinionating. And it's something that you have done prior to this time. So let's learn from your experience of what it was as against what it is now, and what it really should be by broadcast standards.
Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with an opinion being expressed. But I think if you're going to give us your opinion and it is to the left, then you also have to give us a counter. You have to give us an opinion that is equally to the right. Because I don't think that the person who is watching at home is really interested in your bias. I think they don't mind hearing what you think, but then you must also give me something else to think about. So it's not a question of, oh, Jeffrey said it, and so it's rubber stamped. No. Jeffrey said it, but then he also said that there's another option. There's another possibility, okay? So I think we were probably less expressive in the past in terms of our opinions. But then, as you said, you used a word, you talked about evolution. So things change, things move. And the truth is, all around the world, sometimes if you mention a station, you don't really think in terms of who is behind the station. You think about the personalities who are in front of the camera or in front of the microphone. So what is it that makes these people popular? If they didn't have an opinion to share, if they didn't have any information to give, then they would be colorless. So I think there's nothing wrong with expressing your opinion, but I think you should do it courteously. I think you should do it knowledgeably, and I think you should equally give us an alternative, an option.
Well said. In fact, in my head, I was watching something yesterday from Jamie Foxx when he was about to win the Oscars. He said he met Sidney Poitier, who won in '63. When he won another award before that award, and he was becoming a bit careless. So Oprah took him to the meeting, and then that meeting, Poitier was standing afar off, and Poitier told him, "You have to take responsibility." So what he called that forum of elders is the Black Council. You are one of our council. And so we brought that council to television so everybody can learn how it was. But once you're right, you wrote a book. Let's focus on that book. What is the book all about?
Okay, so the book is called Communication and Media in Nigeria, and I did not write it deliberately. When I was thinking about how to commemorate this 50-year milestone, I had written a book a couple of years previously, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to write another one. But I also felt that a book was what was, necessary. So I spoke to a young man, an editor, and I said, "Look, can we do something a bit different?"
Sorry, that's the book, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
that's it. That's it. I said, let's invite contributors. Let's speak to a variety of people who have expertise within the media ecosystem, and let's invite them to write. So we did. And I thought, we sent out invitations to quite a lot of people. I was surprised that almost 80% of them said they were willing to write. So what was supposed to actually come out last year, September 1, it took us 2 years to put it together. So it's coming out this year, September 1. And we have, including the editor and myself, 60 contributing authors. Wow. And they have written across the gamut, from broadcasting to radio to print to advertising to PR, different chapters. And I think it is a book that will bridge the gap because the primary audience or the primary recipients, actually, the intention is that students should be the primary recipients of this book. I have been to a variety of higher institutions, I've taught, and I've discovered that when I go with professional colleagues, there is a big difference between what they are being taught from the textbook and what is actually happening in the real world. And so I felt that this would be a way of bridging the gap, giving them real-time information, from people who have been in the industry. Some of them are retired, some of them are still practitioners, some of them, actually, I think about 3 or 4 are from channels.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
interesting.
Wow.
Yes, it's a must read. It's a must read then.
It is a must read. It really is. It really
I'm
is.
sure a tool for education for
Absolutely.
young persons and universities as well who want to consider broadcasting as a profession.
Yes, not just students, but I mean the practitioners. Will get something out of it, and scholars, because we have some of the people who have written academics. Some of them are professors. So there's a whole lot that you can get from it on 3 different levels. Yeah.
Okay, just away from your book a bit. There's the argument as to this morning we had that debate a bit here that some of you females are calling for or clamoring for perhaps gentle men and gentle women of the press. I wonder what you make of that debate.
I think it's gentle women of the press. No.
Do we do beauty women of the press?
No, we don't. We don't. I'm perfectly okay with gentlemen of the press. Frankly. Yeah, I don't see
Bukola
why.
is not.
No, I'm okay.
She's okay
I'm
with
okay.
it. She's okay with it. Yeah, I mean, what it's, well, if I say what's in a name, I'll be opening a different can of worms. So that's not the point. Gentlewomen of the press, we don't have to, it's not that deep. We don't have to go that far, really.
We must
Did
answer
you
this
just say
question.
it's not that deep?
Yes, that's what I said.
And the last I checked, you're over 70. You must be that must be the Gen Z part of this. Over 70.
As we wind down, there's a question that crossed my mind, and that would be, with the reality of where we live, I mean, Nigeria and all the encumbrances we deal with as a people and as young persons who have seen persons ahead of them, why should a young person in 2026 consider broadcasting as an option, as a career path?
Why not? Why not? Because you are consistently having to learn new things. You learn a little bit of so many different things, and it is it's a stepping stone as well to a lot of other things. I think that if you are serious about being a broadcaster, and you become one for the right reasons, not just because you want your face to be known or you want your name to be known, but because you want to make a contribution to a system that is alive and, well, dare I say it, alive and well. I know that well is relative, but alive and well, okay? You want to make a contribution to it, then I don't see any reason why somebody would not wish to be a broadcaster. I think it's a noble profession. It opens doors to a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of places, and I think it makes you relevant within society. Why not? Why not be a broadcaster?
Those are the perks in terms of the relevant society and giving you a voice. But we must thank you.
Yes.
Any last thoughts before we wrap up? So we know September 1 you're launching the book, or the book will be released?
It will be, publicly released on September the 1st.
Is there a venue?
There is a venue. It is at the Lagos Coliseum the Lekki Coliseum in Lekki, but it is by invitation. It will be a media event. Because it is for the media. But there's one thing that I didn't say when we were talking about the book, and that is that the idea is that we are going to distribute 5 copies of these books to each of 200 institutions of higher learning that we have identified. Institutions that offer courses in communication and media studies. And so we're hoping that members of the public will join us to make it possible. Go out on campus tours, do direct delivery, whichever, as long as we get those copies into the libraries of those institutions.
Fantastic. So we're going to do something different, because not every day we see you. So we're going to make the most of this 50th anniversary.
Yes.
That's your camera. I think that's
Cam 5.
Camera 5.
That one.
We're going to all,
Sign out
on the show, and then you'll be the last to sign out for us. Is that okay, ma'am?
Well, why not? I'm here.
So
We're made for this.
Let's relive 50 years. So, guys, that's it on the program. Thank you. I was thinking I was on my camera. Where am I? Oh, that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. Bye-bye.
Well, Sunrise Daily is up next, and then again, it's been 1 week since the kidnap in Niger State. We're calling on the Niger State government to come clean with Nigerians with data as to how many Nigerians were kidnapped and how many were killed. That's the show, everyone, for the week as well. I'm Kelly Egiga.
We will be back again on Monday. Do have yourselves a lovely weekend. I am Bukola Koka signing out before the veteran who now signs out.
Thank you very much for joining all of us on the show today. The morning brief. We will be back on Monday morning for another brief morning. My name is Bimbo Oloyede.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.